What happens when two lovers, torn apart by interstellar war, find themselves stranded on a dying planet with only 72 hours of oxygen left? You won't believe how their desperate reunion sparks a discovery that could change the fate of entire galaxies. The sun hung low over the horizon, bleeding crimson across a sky that seemed to mirror the chaos below. Gabriel Cross crouched behind a crumbling wall, his fingers tightening around the grip of his rifle as distant explosions rattled the ground beneath him. His breath came in shallow bursts, each one fogging the air before vanishing like whispers into nothingness. Across from him, silhouetted by the fading light, was Maya Ran, her face streaked with dirt but her green eyes blazing with defiance. She wasn't supposed to be here, not on this battlefield where steel rained down and death lurked in every shadow. But fate had other plans. Months earlier, they had been inseparable. A soldier and a medic whose bond transcended duty. Gabriel's unwavering sense of justice complemented Maya's quiet compassion, creating a partnership that felt almost fated. Yet when war erupted between their nations, loyalty tore them apart. Gabriel followed orders. Maya stayed behind to tend to those who couldn't flee. Their last conversation still haunted him, a fractured goodbye filled with promises neither knew if they could keep. He remembered the way her voice cracked when she said she understood why he had to leave, even though her eyes betrayed her pain. It was a moment that replayed in his mind every night, a ghost he couldn't exorcise. Now, reunited under fire, their reunion carried the weight of desperation. A mortar shell landed nearby, sending shards of concrete spiraling through the air. Maya ducked instinctively, clutching her medical kit tighter. "Gabriel!" she called out, her voice cutting through the cacophony. He turned toward her, relief flashing briefly across his face before it hardened again. There was no time for sentimentality here. Not now, not yet. Gabriel scanned the area quickly, assessing their position. They were exposed, vulnerable, and surrounded by enemies who wouldn't hesitate to kill them both. "We need to move," Gabriel barked, his tone leaving no room for argument. Maya nodded, already moving in sync with him despite the months they'd spent apart. Her movements were fluid, practiced, betraying the fact that she'd been thrust into combat zones more times than either of them cared to admit. They darted through the ruins, dodging falling debris and narrowly avoiding sniper fire. Every step reminded Gabriel of how much he'd missed having her by his side. Not just for her skills, but for the steadying presence she brought to even the most chaotic situations. As they reached a partially collapsed building, Gabriel pressed his back against the wall, signaling for Maya to stay low. "We can't stay here," he whispered urgently. "They'll regroup and come after us." Maya nodded, her expression grim. She glanced at the medical kit slung over her shoulder, her fingers brushing against it as if drawing strength from its contents. "Then we keep moving," she replied firmly, her voice steady despite the fear that must have been coursing through her veins. Gabriel couldn't help but admire her resolve, even as his own heart pounded in his chest. "We only just began this story, but trust me, it's about to get far more intense. Stay tuned to find out what happens when these two are forced to confront an enemy even greater than the one they're fighting." The streets were a labyrinth of devastation, every corner hiding potential danger. Gabriel led the way, moving with practiced precision while Maya followed closely, her footsteps soft but deliberate. The sound of gunfire echoed intermittently, growing louder as they neared the heart of the conflict. Neither spoke, they didn't need to. Years of shared experiences had forged a silent understanding between them, though months of separation had left cracks in that foundation. Still, there was something unshakable about their connection, a tether that refused to break despite everything trying to pull them apart. As they navigated the ruins, a group of hostile figures emerged from the shadows, weapons raised. Time slowed for Gabriel as he assessed the situation. One wrong move could mean disaster for both of them. Maya's presence complicated things. He wanted to protect her, shield her from harm, but he knew better than anyone that she wasn't someone who needed shielding. Her courage rivaled his own, perhaps even surpassed it. That thought gave him pause, a flicker of admiration breaking through the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Maya stepped forward, surprising everyone, including Gabriel. "Wait," she said firmly, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. Her voice carried authority, stopping the advancing group in their tracks. For a moment, tension hung heavy in the air, thick enough to choke on. Then, slowly, the leader lowered his weapon, nodding curtly before signaling his team to retreat. Gabriel exhaled sharply, realizing how close they'd come to catastrophe. He turned to Maya, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What was that?" he demanded, his voice low but urgent. "I've treated some of them before," Maya explained quickly, her gaze never leaving the retreating figures. "They know I'm not their enemy." Gabriel stared at her, torn between frustration and awe. On one hand, her actions had saved them from certain death. On the other, she had put herself directly in harm's way, something he had always sworn to prevent. "You shouldn't have done that," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Maya met his gaze evenly. "And let them shoot first? We don't have the luxury of hesitation anymore, Gabriel." Their exchange was brief but charged, revealing the lingering tension between them. Months apart had changed them both, forcing them to adapt to circumstances neither could have anticipated. Yet, amidst the chaos, their bond remained intact, a fragile thread woven through years of shared struggles and sacrifices. As they continued onward, Gabriel found himself glancing at Maya more often, studying her movements, her expressions. She was different now, harder somehow, but no less determined. And that determination scared him because it reminded him of the stakes they were facing. We're on the brink of something huge. What happens next will change everything. You can't afford to miss the climax of this story. It's coming faster than you think. With the immediate threat neutralized, Gabriel and Maya pressed onward, their path illuminated sporadically by flashes of artillery fire in the distance. Each step took them deeper into the heart of the battleground, where survival became less certain with every passing second. Despite the peril, Maya couldn't help but steal glances at Gabriel whenever she thought he wasn't looking. His profile was etched with determination, but she noticed the faint lines of exhaustion etched around his eyes. Whatever battles he'd faced since their separation had taken their toll. Gabriel, too, found himself distracted by Maya's presence. She moved with purpose, her focus unyielding, yet there was a vulnerability in the way she occasionally hesitated, as if unsure whether trusting him again was wise. He understood her hesitation all too well. Trust was a fragile thing, easily shattered and painfully slow to rebuild. Yet, watching her now, he realized how much he'd missed having her by his side. Not just as a partner, but as a reminder of why he fought in the first place. Their journey led them to an abandoned hospital, its once pristine halls now reduced to skeletal remains. It was here that Maya spotted something. A child huddled in the corner, trembling with fear. Without hesitation, she rushed to the boy's side, her instincts overriding caution. Gabriel cursed under his breath but followed, scanning the area for threats. The boy clung to Maya, sobbing uncontrollably, and she murmured soothing words, her touch gentle yet firm. Gabriel watched silently, struck by the depth of her empathy. In that moment, he saw not just the woman he loved, but the embodiment of hope itself. The discovery of the child complicated their mission. They couldn't leave him behind, not in this wasteland where innocence was often the first casualty. wrapping him in a makeshift blanket scavenged from the debris. Maya cradled him close, her movements steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Gabriel kept watch, his gaze darting between shadows and open spaces, searching for any sign of movement. "We're taking him with us," Maya declared, leaving no room for debate. Gabriel opened his mouth to protest but closed it again, knowing it would be futile. Instead, he nodded, adjusting his grip on his rifle. "Fine, but we stick together. No exceptions." As they prepared to leave the hospital, Gabriel's mind raced with possibilities. The boy's presence added another layer of complexity to their already precarious situation. Could they protect him? Would doing so jeopardize their chances of survival? These questions gnawed at him, but one thing was clear. Maya's decision had shifted the dynamics of their mission. Love, it seemed, was complicating matters once again. The discovery of the child added urgency to their mission, forcing Gabriel and Maya to recalibrate their priorities. They couldn't leave the boy behind, not in this wasteland where innocence was often the first casualty. Wrapping him in a makeshift blanket scavenged from the debris, Maya cradled him close, her movements steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Gabriel kept watch, his gaze darting between shadows and open spaces, searching for any sign of movement. Their progress was slow, hindered by the boy's frailty and the constant threat of ambush. At one point, Maya stumbled, nearly dropping the child, but Gabriel caught her arm, steadying her. Their eyes met briefly, and for the first time since their reunion, there was a flicker of something softer, something akin to forgiveness. Neither acknowledged it aloud, but the moment lingered, suspended in the air like smoke after a fire. As night fell, they sought refuge in a partially intact building, barricading the entrance with whatever materials they could find. Inside, Maya tended to the boy, feeding him scraps of food salvaged from her pack. Gabriel stood guard, his silhouette outlined against the moonlight streaming through shattered windows. The silence between them was palpable, charged with unsaid words and unresolved emotions. For the first time, they allowed themselves to rest, however briefly, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to prove their resolve. But even as they rested, the world outside refused to grant them peace. The distant rumble of tanks rolling through the streets echoed faintly, a reminder that their respite was temporary at best. Gabriel clenched his fists, his jaw tightening as he listened to the mechanical growl of machinery designed to destroy. "They're getting closer," he muttered, more to himself than to Maya. She looked up from where she sat beside the boy, her expression unreadable. "We'll deal with it when we have to," she replied softly, though her voice carried an undercurrent of steel. Gabriel nodded, appreciating her pragmatism even as his mind raced ahead, planning contingencies. The boy stirred in his sleep, murmuring incoherently. Maya leaned over him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. Her touch was gentle, almost reverent, as if she were trying to shield him from the horrors of the world. Gabriel watched her, feeling a pang of guilt. He had always admired her ability to see the good in people, even in the darkest of times. It was a quality he both envied and feared. It made her brave, yes, but also vulnerable in ways he couldn't protect her from. When dawn broke, the trio set out once more, navigating the labyrinthine ruins of what had once been a thriving city. Every step felt heavier than the last, the weight of their responsibility pressing down on them like a physical force. Yet, amidst the despair, there were moments of quiet connection, a shared glance, a brief exchange of words that reminded them why they continued to fight. Love, it seemed, was not just a bond but a lifeline in this crumbling world. Dawn broke reluctantly, casting a pale light over the desolate landscape. Gabriel stirred awake, his body stiff from sleeping upright against the wall. Beside him, Maya sat cross-legged, the boy nestled against her chest, still asleep. Her expression was serene, belying the turmoil within. Gabriel studied her quietly, noting the way strands of her auburn hair framed her face, catching the morning light. She looked younger somehow, untouched by the horrors they'd endured. Or perhaps she simply chose to carry them differently. When the boy woke, Maya handed him a small piece of bread, smiling encouragingly. "Eat," she urged softly. "You'll need your strength." The boy obeyed, chewing slowly, his wide eyes darting nervously between her and Gabriel. Sensing his unease, Gabriel knelt beside him, speaking in a tone gentler than Maya had ever heard. "We're going to get you somewhere safe," he promised. "I swear it." Their departure was delayed by the arrival of reinforcements, enemy soldiers scouring the area for survivors. Trapped inside the building, Gabriel and Maya exchanged a glance, wordlessly agreeing on a plan. Using the boy's size to their advantage, they devised a distraction, luring the soldiers away from their position. It was risky, but staying put offered no guarantees either. As they slipped out through a side exit, Maya glanced back at the crumbling structure, her heart pounding, every fiber of her being screamed to turn back, to ensure the boy remained safe. But Gabriel's hand on her shoulder anchored her. Outside, the air was thick with tension, the scent of smoke and gunpowder lingering like a ghost. Gabriel led the way, his movements deliberate yet cautious. Maya followed, clutching the boy tightly, her breath coming in shallow bursts. Each step felt like a gamble, a roll of the dice against fate. When they reached a narrow alleyway, Gabriel signaled for them to stop, pressing his back against the wall. Maya mirrored his posture, her free hand gripping the strap of her medical kit. "We can't stay here," she whispered urgently. Gabriel nodded, scanning the area for an escape route. A sudden burst of gunfire shattered the relative quiet, sending a flock of pigeons scattering into the sky. Maya flinched, instinctively pulling the boy closer. Gabriel cursed under his breath, realizing they had been spotted. "Run!" he shouted, breaking into a sprint. Maya followed, her legs burning with exertion as they dashed through the maze-like streets. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder, boots pounding against the pavement. Gabriel glanced over his shoulder, his expression grim. They were running out of time. Just when it seemed they had nowhere left to go, Gabriel spotted a sewer grate embedded in the ground. Without hesitation, he pried it open, motioning for Maya to climb down. She hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding, descending into the darkness below. Gabriel followed, pulling the grate shut behind them. The stench was overwhelming, a nauseating mix of rot and dampness, but it was preferable to the alternative. As they navigated the narrow tunnels, the sounds of pursuit faded into the distance, replaced by the steady drip of water echoing off the walls. "We can't stay here forever," Maya said finally, breaking the silence. Gabriel nodded, his face illuminated faintly by the beam of a flashlight he had retrieved from his pack. "No," he agreed, "but we've bought ourselves some time, and right now that's all we need." Pushing forward, they reached the outskirts of the city, where the remnants of civilization gave way to barren wilderness. The terrain shifted abruptly, jagged cliffs rising ominously against the horizon. Gabriel scanned the area, searching for signs of pursuit. So far, they'd managed to evade capture, but luck was a fickle ally. Maya adjusted the boy's position in her arms, wincing as her muscles protested. Exhaustion gnawed at her, but she pushed through, driven by sheer willpower. A sudden noise startled them, a low growl emanating from the bushes. Gabriel raised his weapon instinctively, his finger hovering over the trigger. Out stepped a mangy dog, ribs visible beneath matted fur. Its eyes locked onto the boy, curiosity outweighing aggression. Maya relaxed slightly, lowering her guard. "It's just hungry," she murmured, reaching into her pack for a scrap of food. The dog approached cautiously, sniffing her hand before accepting the offering. Gabriel watched, bemused, as the creature trailed after them, seemingly content to follow their lead. The unexpected companion provided a strange sense of comfort, a reminder that life persisted even in the darkest places. As they trudged onward, Maya found herself smiling faintly, grateful for the small reprieve. Gabriel, however, remained vigilant, his mind racing with possibilities. How long could they keep running, and what awaited them beyond the horizon? By midday, the sun blazed overhead, turning the ground into a furnace. Sweat dripped down Maya's temples as she struggled to maintain her pace. The boy, too, showed signs of fatigue, his head lolling against her shoulder. Gabriel noticed and slowed his stride, falling back to walk beside them. "Let me take him for a while," he offered, extending his arms. Maya hesitated, reluctant to relinquish her hold, but eventually relented. Gabriel hoisted the boy onto his back, securing him with practiced ease. "He's lighter than I expected," Gabriel remarked, attempting to lighten the mood. Maya managed a weak smile, though her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. As they climbed higher, the wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of pine and earth. For the first time in days, they caught glimpses of greenery peeking through the desolation, a fragile promise of renewal. Gabriel paused at a ridge, gazing out over the valley below. "There," he said, pointing to a cluster of buildings nestled among the trees. "That looks like a settlement." Maya joined him, shielding her eyes from the glare. "Do you think it's safe?" she asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. Gabriel shrugged. "Only one way to find out." The settlement Gabriel had spotted from the ridge turned out to be little more than a cluster of abandoned farmhouses, their wooden frames weathered and sagging under the weight of time. Despite its dilapidated state, it offered some semblance of shelter, a respite from the relentless march they'd endured for days. Gabriel led the way cautiously, his rifle at the ready as he scanned each structure for signs of danger. Maya followed closely, her arms wrapped protectively around the boy, who had begun to stir again after dozing off during their climb. As they approached the largest building, a barn with a partially collapsed roof, Gabriel signaled for them to stop. He crept forward silently, his boots crunching softly against gravel. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the faint scent of hay lingered beneath layers of decay. After confirming the area was clear, he motioned for Maya to join him. "It's not much," he admitted, sweeping his flashlight beam across the interior, "but it'll keep us hidden until we figure out our next move." Maya nodded, lowering herself onto a pile of old sacks that smelled faintly of mildew. She adjusted the boy's position, ensuring he remained comfortable despite their surroundings. Meanwhile, Gabriel busied himself reinforcing the entrance, dragging debris to create a makeshift barrier. The dog that had been trailing them trotted in moments later, curling up near Maya and resting its head on its paws. For a brief moment, the scene almost felt normal, a family reunited in the midst of chaos, however fleeting that illusion might be. Yet, even in this temporary sanctuary, tension simmered just below the surface. Gabriel paced restlessly, his mind racing with possibilities. They were running out of options, and every decision carried risks they couldn't afford to ignore. "We can't stay here long," he said finally, breaking the silence. "If anyone comes looking for us, this place won't hold." Maya looked up at him, her green eyes reflecting both exhaustion and resolve. "Then what do you suggest?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fatigue etched into her features. Gabriel hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "There's a checkpoint about 20 clicks east of here," he explained. "If we can reach it, we might be able to secure passage to safer territory." Maya frowned, considering the implications. "That's assuming the checkpoint is still operational and friendly." Gabriel nodded grimly. "It's a gamble, I know, but sitting here waiting for trouble isn't an option either." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of distant thunder, rolling ominously across the valley. A storm was approaching, bringing with it the promise of rain and colder temperatures. Maya glanced at the boy, concern etched across her face. "He won't survive another night exposed," she said quietly, voicing the fear they both shared. Gabriel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then we make a run for it before the storm hits. We'll use the cover of darkness to our advantage." The journey to the checkpoint proved grueling, testing their limits in ways neither had anticipated. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, and dehydration sapped their energy. Gabriel rationed their supplies meticulously, ensuring the boy received the lion's share. Maya marveled at his selflessness, though she suspected it stemmed from guilt rather than altruism. Guilt over leaving her behind, guilt over failing to prevent the war, guilt over everything that had gone wrong. She recognized the burden because she carried it too, albeit differently. One evening, as they camped beneath a canopy of stars, Maya attempted to broach the subject. "You blame yourself, don't you?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible over the wind. Gabriel froze, his back to her. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't respond. Then finally he spoke. "Every day," he admitted, his voice raw with emotion. "For everything. For letting you go. For not stopping this madness before it started." Maya reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's not your fault," she insisted. "None of this is." But even as she said the words, she wondered if she truly believed them. War had a way of distorting truths, twisting reality until nothing made sense anymore. All they could do was cling to each other, to the fragile hope that someday, somehow, things might improve. The boy slept fitfully beside them, tossing and turning in the throes of a nightmare. Maya leaned over him, smoothing his hair and murmuring soothing words until he calmed. Watching her, Gabriel felt a pang of admiration, and something deeper, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel fully since their reunion. It wasn't just love. It was gratitude, reverence, and a fierce determination to protect what little they had left. When morning came, the storm clouds had rolled in, casting a gray pallor over the landscape. Rain began to fall in earnest, soaking through their clothes and chilling them to the bone. Gabriel urged them onward, knowing that stopping now would only make matters worse. Maya trudged alongside him, her teeth chattering but her spirit unbroken. "How much farther?" she asked, her voice strained. Gabriel checked the crude map he'd sketched earlier, estimating their progress. "A few more hours, maybe less if we push hard enough." They pushed hard indeed, their bodies screaming in protest with every step. The terrain grew increasingly treacherous, slick mud threatening to pull them down with every misstep. At one point, Maya slipped, landing hard on her side. Gabriel rushed to her aid, helping her to her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone laced with concern. Maya nodded, wincing as she tested her weight on her injured ankle. "I'll manage," she replied tersely, refusing to let pain slow her down. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the rain had eased into a drizzle, though the ground remained a slippery mess. Ahead of them, the outline of the checkpoint loomed, guarded by soldiers whose silhouettes were barely visible through the mist. Gabriel raised a hand, signaling for them to halt. "This is it," he whispered. "Stay close, and let me handle the talking." The checkpoint proved to be a tense affair, fraught with uncertainty and mistrust. Gabriel approached cautiously, raising his hands to show he was unarmed. Two guards stepped forward, their rifles trained on him as they demanded identification. Gabriel complied, producing documents that identified him as part of a reconnaissance unit. "We're civilians seeking refuge," he explained, gesturing toward Maya and the boy. "Please, we need help." The guards exchanged skeptical glances before calling for their commanding officer. A tall, broad-shouldered man emerged from the guardhouse, his expression unreadable. He listened intently as Gabriel recounted their ordeal, occasionally glancing at Maya and the boy. Finally, he nodded curtly. "You can stay here temporarily," he said, "but beyond this point, you're on your own." Relief washed over Gabriel, though it was tempered by caution. He thanked the officer and returned to Maya, guiding her and the boy inside the compound. The accommodations were sparse, a series of tents arranged haphazardly, but they provided warmth and relative safety. As they settled in, Maya noticed the boy beginning to perk up, his curiosity overcoming his fear. He wandered tentatively among the other refugees, drawing cautious smiles from those who watched him. Gabriel, meanwhile, sought out the officer, hoping to gather information about their next steps. "Where does this road lead?" he asked, pointing to a map pinned to the wall. The officer traced a route with his finger. "To a refugee camp about 50 kilometers north," he replied. "It's crowded, but it's safe for now." Gabriel nodded, committing the details to memory. When he rejoined Maya, he relayed the news, watching as a flicker of hope lit up her eyes. That night, as they huddled together beneath a shared blanket, Maya turned to Gabriel, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think we'll make it?" she asked, her gaze searching his. Gabriel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we've come this far. Together we'll find a way." The final leg of their journey tested their resilience like never before. Exhaustion clung to them like a second skin, and the weight of their mission pressed down relentlessly. Yet, with each passing kilometer, the promise of safety grew stronger, a beacon pulling them forward. When the gates of the refugee camp finally came into view, tears streamed down Maya's face, unchecked and unrestrained. Gabriel wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. Against all odds, they'd made it together. Inside the camp, chaos reigned. Tents sprawled haphazardly across the grounds, housing thousands of displaced individuals. Children played amidst the rubble, their laughter a stark contrast to the somber expressions of adults. Gabriel and Maya navigated the crowded pathways, searching for someone in charge. Eventually, they located a coordinator, a weary-looking woman named Elena, who listened intently as they explained their ordeal. Elena arranged for the boy to receive medical attention, promising to reunite him with surviving relatives if possible. Meanwhile, she offered Gabriel and Maya temporary quarters, urging them to rest. Reluctantly, they accepted, collapsing onto cots that smelled faintly of mildew. Sleep eluded them initially, their minds replaying recent events on endless loops. Yet, eventually, exhaustion claimed them, dragging them into dreams both vivid and haunting. Inside the camp, chaos reigned. Tents sprawled haphazardly across the grounds, housing thousands of displaced individuals. Children played amidst the rubble, their laughter a stark contrast to the somber expressions of adults. Gabriel and Maya navigated the crowded pathways, searching for someone in charge. Eventually, they located a coordinator, a weary-looking woman named Elena, who listened intently as they explained their ordeal. Elena's face softened as she studied the boy, her eyes lingering on his gaunt cheeks and hollow eyes. "He's lucky to have survived," she murmured, kneeling to examine him more closely. Maya tensed, instinctively stepping closer to shield him, but Gabriel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "He'll be okay," he whispered, though his voice carried a note of uncertainty. Elena nodded briskly, calling over a medic who quickly ushered the boy away. Maya watched him go, her heart aching with a mix of relief and dread. She wanted to follow, to ensure he was truly safe, but Gabriel's grip tightened slightly, grounding her. "We need to trust them now," he said gently, his tone firm yet compassionate. Maya exhaled sharply, nodding reluctantly. "I know," she replied, her voice barely audible. "It's just hard." Gabriel didn't respond immediately. Instead, he guided her toward a nearby tent, where Elena had arranged temporary quarters for them. The space was cramped and sparsely furnished. A pair of cots, a small table, and a lantern that flickered weakly, but it offered privacy, a rare luxury in the overcrowded camp. As they settled in, Maya found herself replaying the events of the past weeks in her mind. Each memory felt like a wound reopening, raw and unhealed. Gabriel noticed her distress, sitting beside her and placing a tentative hand on hers. "You're allowed to feel this," he said softly, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in his own thoughts. "We've been through hell, Maya. It's okay not to have all the answers right now." Maya looked at him, her green eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "But what happens next?" she asked, her voice trembling. Gabriel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "We take it one day at a time," he replied. "For now, we rest. Tomorrow, we'll figure out how to move forward. Together." The days that followed were a blur of activity and adjustment. Gabriel volunteered for perimeter patrols, using his combat experience to bolster the camp's defenses. Maya, meanwhile, worked tirelessly in the infirmary, tending to the sick and injured. Their paths crossed frequently, though conversations remained sparse. Both were processing their experiences, grappling with unresolved emotions. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Gabriel approached Maya, his expression unreadable. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. She nodded, following him to a secluded spot overlooking the camp. Beneath the starlit sky, they revisited old memories, confronting past mistakes and misunderstandings. Words flowed freely, unburdening hearts weighed down by regret. "We've lost so much," Maya admitted, her voice tinged with sorrow. "But we still have each other," Gabriel countered, taking her hand. "And that's enough for me." In that moment, reconciliation felt tangible, a bridge spanning the chasm between them. They embraced, drawing strength from the knowledge that love, though battered, remained intact. Yet, even as they clung to each other, questions lingered. What did the future hold? Could they rebuild their lives in this fractured world? For now, those answers seemed distant, obscured by the fog of uncertainty. News of ceasefires sparked cautious optimism, though skepticism lingered. Gabriel and Maya debated whether to return home or start anew elsewhere. The decision weighed heavily, complicated by lingering attachments and uncertain futures. Ultimately, they chose to remain in the camp, aiding reconstruction efforts and supporting fellow survivors. Their bond deepened, forged anew through shared adversity. Laughter returned, tentative at first but growing stronger with time. Even Scout flourished, becoming a beloved fixture among the children. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hopeful, a testament to resilience and the enduring power of connection. Yet, beneath the surface, scars remained. Gabriel often woke in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat from nightmares he couldn't shake. Maya, too, struggled with guilt, wondering if she could have done more to save others along the way. But together, they found solace in their shared pain, leaning on each other when the weight became too much to bear alone. Months later, standing atop a hill overlooking the rebuilt village, Gabriel and Maya reflected on their journey. From the ashes of war, they'd carved a future worth fighting for. Hand in hand, they gazed at the horizon, dreaming of possibilities yet unexplored. Love hadn't merely reunited them. It had transformed them, teaching lessons humility, sacrifice, and redemption. They had built something extraordinary amidst devastation. A community bound not by blood, but by shared struggles and triumphs. As they descended the hill, Gabriel turned to Maya, his expression thoughtful. "Do you think we'll ever forget?" he asked, his voice tinged with melancholy. Maya shook her head slowly. "No," she replied, "but maybe remembering will make us stronger." As the credits roll, remember, true love conquers all, even the ravages of war. Subscribe for more gripping tales of courage, sacrifice, and triumph against all odds. This structure ensures that each part is richly detailed and emotionally resonant while maintaining suspense and engagement throughout. If you'd like further refinement or additional expansions within specific sections, feel free to ask.